Good afternoon. I'm Sergeant First Class Shattuck with the Ohio Army National Guard here in Piqua. I'm the Readiness NCO for Bravo Battery, 1st of the 134th Field Artillery. So that's my unit there in Piqua. I'd like to thank Mr. Flory for inviting us today. Thanks for lunch, it was delicious. I'll start telling you a little bit about me. I joined the National Guard in 1993. So, funny recruiting story for you. Back then, my dad knew someone in recruiting. He's like, hey, you should give this a thought. You know, I'm a junior in high school. So I go meet with the recruiter, Sergeant Myers, and she said, so you want to join the National Guard? I said, maybe. What do you got? She's like, well, I have 3 jobs right now that you could get into. It's like, okay, what do you got? She said, we've got infantry. And I'm like, okay, well, I've seen platoon. What else do you got? And she said, I've got combat engineers. I'm like, oh, what do they do? She said, they build stuff. Okay, what else do you got? She said, I've got field artillery. Now, I'd never heard these 2 words put together in my life. I'm like, what is that? She's like, they blow stuff up. I said, where do I sign? Yes, I want to blow stuff up. So 26 years later, here I stand in front of you. And I've spent all of those 26 years in the unit here in Piqua. So it's been a good time, and I like it a lot. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it today. So today I'll just give you a brief overview of who we are and what we do, give you a little bit of history, some of the accomplishments, capabilities, some of the places we've been. We have different elements in the armory here in Piqua, so there's multiple units and recruiting and full-time staff and things of the nature. So we'll talk a little bit about, we like to brag about our cost effectiveness because we are a cost effective force. We optimize resources, that's what we do. And then community involvement, and then any questions you may have. So the Ohio National Guard as a whole is comprised of both Army and Air Force personnel serving in both full-time and part-time capacities. So we have the traditional force in the National Guard is the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, that kind of service. To keep that force going, it takes a smaller contingent of full-timers like myself, Sergeant Truitt, to just run the daily operations of the unit. So our mission as a state is to be the first choice, a trusted team of soldiers, airmen, and civilians serving our communities, state, and nation through agility, collaboration, excellence, and leadership. The vision, always ready, always there. Our core values are service, excellence, teamwork, stewardship, reliability, inclusion, innovation, as well as the Army values of leadership, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And our motto is simply, fight tonight. We always have to be ready at a moment's notice to answer the call for a natural disaster, or any civil disturbance, things of that nature, as well as our federal overseas deployments and things like that. So, always ready, fight tonight. So the patch you see on my left sleeve is that of the 37th Infantry Brigade Combat Team. This is our brigade, which my field artillery unit falls under. It's one of 6 brigades in the state. Our brigade was established in 1917, which makes it 102 years old. Some of the campaign credits for the 37th Division, the Buckeye Division as they're known, go all the way back to World War I, World War II, Kosovo, as well as more recently the War on Terrorism. Afghanistan 2012 was a big year for us. Additionally, backing up a step, in World War II, the division spent almost 2 years in daily combat. So it was a long campaign. And they had 8 Medal of Honor recipients in the wake of World War II. So the armory, I'm sure everyone here has seen it at some point, driven by, is 89 years old. So it's a very historic structure. Stop by sometime, I'll show you the bones. It's very interesting, some of the places in that armory. It was constructed in 1930. It used to have stables for the horses that pulled the cannons way back when we did horse-drawn artillery. Those stables were removed in the 1950s with the technological advent of vehicles and such. There was a field maintenance shop that operated out of the back of the armory from 1987 till 2011, and they would just provide all the maintenance needs of our units. We do share the unit with the transportation company. They have a lot of trucks. We have a lot of trucks and equipment, so it was nice to have them right there in the backyard. Now they're in Springfield, so we still make it work. Over the years, they've done projects to try and modernize the facility, and they're constantly doing that, upgrading the latrines, the restrooms, and they're looking at HVAC, things like that, trying to just bring it up to speed. But it is an old building, and those renovations tend to either be too expensive or just not worth it. But we like it. Overall, I'd say the facility is in excellent condition now. We do rent it out to the citizens in different groups to allow them to come in and enjoy the facility and have their private events. I know every Thanksgiving the Boys and Net family has their family Thanksgiving there. We have recurring rentals with there's a wrestling group that likes to come to town and do that. They're good patrons, as well as Piqua Police Department. Any of the city organizations that need a building, we just open the doors to them. Most recently, they did Careful Corners, which is for the pre-K kids to learn how to ride bicycles and get on the bus and learn about police and fire and safety in general. So it's a good program. Thanks. So my unit is Bravo Battery, 1st of the 134th Field Artillery. Some of our accomplishments over the years. Well, let me back up. Our unit was organized in May of 1875 under the Ohio National Guard at Gettysburg as the Gettysburg Guard. So it dates all the way back. So that makes our unit 144 years old. It moved to Piqua in 1903, so that gives us 116 years here in Piqua. And yeah, some of the accomplishments, Luzon, they earned the Philippine Presidential Unit Citation, and then we got the Meritorious Unit Commendation for service in Afghanistan. Some of the photos, the one on the right, you can get a better view up here. These are photos that go from 1922 all the way up until June of this year. So take a peek. You'll see artillerymen from Piqua, or at least from the Piqua units, in various scenarios all through time. Okay. So we share the unit, or the armory, with the 1487th Transportation Company. Also an outstanding unit. They have lots of accomplishments, many campaigns over the years. They were organized in 1872 at Covington as the Covington Guard, and they were an independent militia at the time. So that makes them 147 years old. And they moved to Piqua in 1982. Some of their accomplishments, Luzon, they were there as well. They got the Philippine Presidential Unit Citation, the Meritorious Unit Commendation, and then again, the Meritorious Unit Commendation in Afghanistan. So they have 2 of those. So we'll talk a little bit about capabilities. For Bravo Battery, our federal mission, so when the President calls upon us, our federal mission would be to destroy, neutralize, or suppress the enemy by cannon fires. So, you know, we go to combat, we shoot the big guns. We help the infantry, the maneuver units, whoever needs us, you know, we clear the way so they can do their thing. State mission, on order, the 134th Field Artillery alerts and assembles, prepared to deploy elements as required at the call of the governor. On order to provide support in the priority of the restoration of order in the event of a civil disorder, to support the governor in the event of emergency proclamation or disaster,
and to support the surrounding FEMA regions in the event of emergency proclamations. It's a very broad state mission. But we do answer the call to the governor, we answer the call to the president. We work for both of them. Community mission, the 134th participates in activities which add value to their community through employer outreach, community event sponsorship, family readiness group relationships, local partnerships, and volunteerism. We try to stay as active as we can out there. So you might see us, a lot of times we'll take our cannons and we'll go set up at various events. You might see us in a parade. We did a thing down in Troy at the, there was a law enforcement thing down there not too long ago. I can't remember what it was, but it involved high school, junior high aged kids. So anyway, we take our stuff out there and let the kids check it out. It's fun. So, next slide, please. Okay. Here we go. So, our primary weapon system is the M119 Alpha 3 howitzer. It's a 105 millimeter cannon. Standard firing range of this piece is 14,000 meters with a maximum range of 19,500 meters, which can be achieved with rocket-assisted munitions. A standard crew of 7 is needed to prepare the howitzer for firing. So it's a crew drill. It's a team effort to do what we do. It has a digital fire control system with inertial navigation for self-location. So it has its own GPS. It knows where it's at, and you can tell it where to go. And it's very smart. It's a smart gun. It also has airborne and air assault capabilities. So we will hook them up to helicopters, as you see in the bottom right photo, and then you can fly into wherever and drop them. And the crew will be inside the helicopter. We use Blackhawks most often, but you can do it with Chinooks. That's the bigger helicopter. But you can get a whole gun crew in a Blackhawk with a howitzer underneath, fly them in, drop them. The concept of air raids, where you go behind enemy lines, you drop in, you shoot, and then they come and pick you up and pull you back. So we practiced that a few times. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun, actually. I didn't bring video. Sorry, I kind of wish I had, but I've got some great video. It's fun to watch these things do their thing in motion. I mean, the pictures don't really do it justice. And the volume, the sound that comes off these things is incredible. 26 years, and I can still hear a little bit. Next slide. The transportation company has a different federal mission. They provide transportation for the movement of containerized, non-containerized, palletized, dry and or refrigerated containerized cargo, bulk water products, and bulk petroleum. So, I mean, they move a lot of stuff. Their federal and community missions are the same. These are the same across the state because we all support the governor in the same fashion with the state mission as well as in our individual communities. Next slide. The transportation unit, they primarily use these M915 semi-trucks and then trailers to go along with those. And as I said, I mean, they can move stuff. They can move a lot of stuff. As you can see the numbers there, they move tons of cargo. And what, were you in the unit when they did the tree thing out west?
I had gotten in right after they did that.
So they do interesting missions across the country. Their AT, like we go to AT, we practice shooting the cannons, and we can only do that in a couple places. So we go blow up a little piece of Michigan every summer. One day we're going to win that war. But that's what we
win
do.
that war every November.
There you go. But these guys get to go. They went out to North Dakota and helped like with a humongous logging operation of some sort. So they were rolling their trucks, carrying trees and poles and all that. And then there's one down south. What they do down there? Something different.
We hauled some explosives.
Okay. So yeah, they move explosives and things like that. So they can move anything. And we were talking earlier, we borrow these trucks. They were kind enough to license a couple of my guys on driving these trucks. And so they let us borrow their trucks so we could put our howitzers on them and drive them over to Indiana. That way the government would rent like civilian truck drivers to do that. They would pay them to do that, but it costs a lot of money. So we try and utilize the resources we have in the backyard. We made a partnership with these guys, and it's working out great. So We do that twice a year, so I imagine we're saving the state quite a bit of money, and it's fun for my guys to drive those semis. They like it because it's not something they get to do every day. So yeah, we work well together over there at Dawn. Next slide. So deployments for Bravo Battery. Deployments date back to the war with Spain. Now, I don't know if anybody here studies military history in terms of the frequency of reorganization. And by that I mean units are designated one thing and then they get changed every so often, and that's how the Company C, 3rd Ohio Volunteer Infantry is our lineage. You know, if you think about it in terms of just almost like family lineage, that's how this works. So you'll see a lot of different names, but it all led to where we are today, if that makes sense. So anyway, the war with Spain, Company C, World War I was Company C 148 Infantry, excuse me, which 148 is still in existence. That's the infantry battalion in our brigade that we support with our cannon fighters. So they're the infantry, we're the artillery, brother and sister like that. So they had 3 campaigns in World War I. World War II, we were Charlie Battery of the 136 Field Artillery with 2 campaigns in the Pacific, and then our headquarters element had campaigns in Europe as well. And then in Korea, the Charlie Battery of the 136 made it as far as Camp Polk, Louisiana. They didn't actually go into Korea, so they were ready to go. Next slide. So current or modern era deployments include Operation Enduring Freedom 2004. We went to RAF Mildenhall, which is the Royal Air Force Base in England. One of many that we were at actually. But around that time, excuse me, they were taking Air Force security forces, pulling them into Iraq for the war. So it depleted their security on their bases across Europe. So then they called the National Guard to provide security for those bases. So we guarded Air Force bases, checked IDs, flight line, and things like that. It was a great experience, unbelievable. Actually, 10 months in Europe, we had time to travel a little bit. It wasn't like a war deployment for us, so it was real nice. And we got to meet a lot of great people and do important jobs. So that was good. And then as soon as we got home, I mean, maybe 6 months later, we went to Hurricane Katrina. And I don't know if you've seen the National Guard commercial where they say, "I'll never forget the day I got the call." I will never forget the day I got this call. I was moving. My wife and I were just moving to our new house. We were meeting our new neighbors, sitting on a tailgate of his pickup truck. We're having a beer. Hey, good to know you. I'm going to be your neighbor. And I get the phone call. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. My wife's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, I gotta go. So yeah, I went to Hurricane Katrina, and she had to wrangle some people to help us move. So I had trucks rented and everything. It was a mess. But yeah, that was an experience. Hurricanes really make a difference. So if you've never seen one in person, it's devastating. So we spent a month down there trying to help them out. In 2008, the unit went to Kuwait, another security mission, and they were at the Kuwaiti naval base, guarding a port, I believe. It was the main port of entry for sea-bound cargo. I didn't go with them, but from what I understand, they just secured the port, and they spent 10 months over there doing that. And then Afghanistan in 2012. Yeah, we went over there. We were in the western part of the country, not far from the Iranian border. It was a pretty quiet part of the country compared to what was going on in other parts of the country. So, relatively calm deployment for us. But you'll notice, in none of these deployments did we take our cannons. We have yet to use our howitzers in a deployment scenario. They often call on field artillery units to provide security for other elements, whether it be for the Air Force, the Navy, whomever. In Afghanistan, we actually worked with the Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Air Force, so we supported them. But we have capabilities beyond just the cannons. We have everything from small arms, the M9 pistol, all the way up to the cannons. So we've got various levels of machine guns, rifles, pistols that we train on, we're proficient with. We establish our own security in the field, so we don't have anybody protect us when we're out there doing our thing. We have to establish our own perimeters and all of that. So being fluent in providing our own security lends us to the task of providing security to others. So that's how we get some of these missions. And then most recently, the biggest thing we've done would be the Republican National Convention in 2016. I went up there and assisted every three-letter agency you could think of the federal government. We worked alongside CIA, FBI, Secret Service, ATF, Homeland Security, in a humongous operation to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone in attendance at the convention. And we even had guys, I've seen photographs on the flight line next to President Trump's plane that says Trump on it, and they're like, doing that kind of thing. And the funny thing about Secret Service, I don't know if you know any Secret Service people, if you've ever met one, but when you think of a Secret Service guy, what do you think of? Kind of black suit, black tie, sunglasses, little earpiece, right? I met Secret Service guys that look like gorillas. And by that I mean, they were heavily tattooed, they had crazy beards, they were scary. I was afraid to look them in the eye. And I was in uniform. These dudes were loaded down with guns like something off a movie, and they had dogs, those, like serious military working dogs. And that's who scoured the airports. These guys were just roaming around the airports, just itching for trouble. But there was none to be had because there were just too many. But yeah, interesting, Secret Service. More than just a black suit and tie. Okay, next slide, please. We do have a recruiting presence in Piqua, of course, because that's how we keep soldiers coming in the force. Sergeant Truitt is an upcoming recruiter with that office. Some of their stats, they operate out of Piqua, but they encompass most of Miami and Shelby counties, so they reach out pretty far. And your zone might be even greater than that now, right? Like, what counties do you cover? Miami, Shelby, are there any others?
Yeah, like Clark County.
Okay.
We go from Springfield to Dayton, Piqua, St. Mary's. I mean, all of those areas are going to exist.
So yeah, they got a pretty wide region that they cover. As of the time of this data, they were averaging 129 contracts a year, so they were enlisting approximately 129 people a year. They get 16% of the Army National Guard market share, and all of the reserve forces average about 11 contracts per year combined. So a lot of people join the Guard. Next. So when it comes to daily operations, it's very similar to those of any small business. As I mentioned before, we have 3 full-time personnel in my unit, and the transportation unit has 3 as well. And this is typical of most National Guard units. You'll have a readiness NCO, which is what I do. I deal with personnel issues, mostly human resources type things, payroll, things of that nature, records, things, my training NCO, he manages scheduling people for schools, ensuring that their travel is taken care of. When they get back, he processes their paperwork to make sure they get credit or promoted or whatever the case may be. And he also works closely with the commander in planning the unit's training for the year. And then my supply/logistics NCO handles all matters of just that, supply and logistics. He coordinates convoy things, he orders supplies and uniforms. Yeah, he does a lot. So between the 3 of us, we get it done. It's a giant workload to manage the unit, which is about 90 soldiers that we take care of. But it has its rewards. The cost effectiveness, just an interesting stat. Today's National Guard is a modern, accessible military force that trains and performs to the same standards as their active component counterparts at a fraction of the cost. So we are held to the same standards as the active duty Army. They get 30 days a month to do what they do. We get 2 to 3. But we have to do it as well, if not better. And oftentimes we do it better. We go head to head with active element. In training scenarios, we'll go to the field and we'll train with the active Army guys, and they're blown away. They're like, man, how how do you guys do what you do in such a short amount of time? We do. Our guys are dedicated, and they do a really good job. So even though we ask too much of them, they're always up for it. It's pretty amazing. As a result, a Guard member is on average 28% of the cost of an active duty member. So again, 30 days versus 3 or 4. So yeah, and it's really fun for us to go and train with active elements. Most recently this summer, we sent a platoon from our battery here in Piqua to Hungary, which is our partner nation when it comes to National Guard forces. We have a partnership with them. It was a huge exercise called Operation Breakthrough. It was a multinational live fire combined exercise. So what we had was our platoon with a platoon from another one of our firing batteries made up a task force, went over there, trained and shot with the Hungarians and elements from the active army on this big grand scale, humongous operation, 3 weeks long I think it was. But yeah, they come away from these things and the guys who do it every day are like, wow, you guys are awesome. And it makes our guys feel good, so then they want to keep being awesome. So yeah, and I mean, a great experience. You know, a lot of guys, I've been in 26 years, a lot of people don't stay in beyond their 6-year enlistment. So the guys who went to Hungary are going to have that for the rest of their life, kind of like I got Hurricane Katrina. You know, I mean, it leaves a memory, it leaves an impression. Excellent. And then as far as community engagement, I mean, we just try to stay active in supporting the community, local law enforcement, the schools, and the public in general. Years ago, we helped move the school board. I remember that vaguely, but there was a big move. They moved out of one building and into another. I don't remember the ins and outs of it, but I know that our unit helped them do that.
They could not have done it without you, because they moved, we packed up, I taught.
Okay.
We packed up in May,
Mm-hmm.
and you loaded it on the semis, and then we moved to totally different buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody got all their stuff. It was,
So it worked out well?
without you.
Great. So yeah, if you ever need help, give me a call. We'll see what we can do.
Hopefully this is the last time.
So yeah, and then all are welcome at the historic Piqua Armory. I mean, if you guys, like I said, you want to stop in and just check it out, you're welcome. I try and keep some historical stuff on hand, and then just the actual building itself is just a neat place to look at. At this point, next slide. Any questions?
You're 26. You've been 26 years now. Is looking farther out to the right. Is there 26 or is there a 30-year if you elect to retire at a 30-year mark, and then does that grow as your retirement benefits grow as you go on 35 years or what?
Mm-hmm. I'm in a unique situation. We are, because we're active. They call it AGR, Active Guard Reserve. So for us, you have to do 20 active years to retire. But yeah, anything beyond that, it just adds to your pension. But in order to retire, like my plan, I got about 5 or 6 years to go before I'm eligible. So at that point, I can retire and immediately draw a pension. If I choose not to stay that long, I could retire tomorrow from the traditional National Guard, but I have to wait till I'm 59 and a half, I think, to draw that pension. But yeah, the longer you stay in, the more it is. So it does, yeah, the longer you can stick around, the more lucrative it is on the backside.
So what's the average age of your group?
I would say the median age is probably 27, maybe?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
He's in E5, he's 25, and that's the median right there. I'm a crusty old E7. I'm the oldest. There's one guy in my unit older than me. So out of 90, I'm the second oldest person in my unit. So it's a young man's game.
And they come from all over the state too.
They really
correct?
do. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Because of what they want to do, your field artillery.
Right, yeah. People set up for the job more than for the local, I want to be in the local unit. I mean, I'm sure you get some of that, but you have to take tests. There's the ASVAB, which is the mental agility. There is physical testing required, so you have to see where you wind up. If you have high written test scores, ASVAB scores, you could do things like intelligence. You could do things like what some of the brain jobs are, but
Just intelligence.
cyber's a new thing, like the cyber security. That's a whole new thing that they're working with now, and that's a partnership with the Air Force too. So we have a cyber unit in Ohio that works on that stuff. And then if you're really strong, you can do infantry, artillery, combat arms, the traditional stuff. But yeah, we have people that come from Athens, Zanesville, Cleveland, Cincinnati, all over. But yeah, they do. It used to be a little different when I first got in. A lot of guys were from Piqua.
So how many National Guard units are in Ohio?
Those are 100.
There's quite a bit. It's about
Right.
100?
Right. I mean, because we have 2 here, and then I couldn't tell you
Okay.
total.
it's a lot.
There are a lot. There's a map with lots of dots. There. Yeah. There's probably 100 units, and there's over 10,000 soldiers in the area. Sir, you had a question?
Those howitzers, they're probably with GPS controlled now. How accurate are they?
Very. I mean, they really are. They made it a lot easier on us because we used to use different methods to determine where we were in relation to the target, and our accuracy was decent. But now they're very, very accurate because they know exactly where we are and they know exactly where the target is. And so a lot of the old bubble, like you look through the sight and all the bubbles and stuff are gone. Now there's like the gunner's display unit. It's just got like a cross on it. And there's this little black like tick, tick, tick bar. So you just turn it until the tick, tick, tick lines up, and then you shoot it, and you'll hit whatever you're aiming at. It's pretty impressive. So yeah. All right. Thank you all again for having us.
And Sergeant Truitt, if you want to take a minute?
Yes, I just want to give a short little spiel. I am Sergeant Truitt, Cody Truitt, and the rumors are true. I am in the Army. I'm a recruiter for the Army National Guard, and I apologize. I'm a professional, but I have a very unprofessional personality. I have a lot of energy, and I like to, because I'm used to talking to high school kids, so I'm up in their face and I'm loud and I'm throwing stuff up. I don't have a slide, by the way. I don't have a fancy slide. I don't have numbers. I don't have
He has great business cards.
statistics. Yes, I have awesome business cards, and Vistaprint is a wonderful website. I just like to talk about the Guard to kids. Most of you have worked with military or were in the military, and if you did, I thank you for your service. The military is awesome no matter what branch you're in. It is a great opportunity for experience, and it sets your life up for the future, and I will preach that all the day long. But like he said, we're big in the community. Events, if any events are going on, we like to be there, show our face. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm here in Piqua in the Armory. I'm in the 1487, like he said, with the transportation. I've been there for about 3 years now. And a little bit about myself. I'm married, my beautiful wife. I'm only 25, I don't have any kids, so we got 2 fur babies, a golden retriever and a chocolate lab, yeah. And yeah, so I was active duty for about 3.5 years. I was in Hawaii, terrible, I know. And so I spent my time active duty there, and then I joined the Guard, and I've been doing it for about 4 years now, so 7-ish years total I've been in. And so I'm not as decorated as this fine seal here, but I am got a little bit under my belt. So I just wanted to show my face, meet you young, wonderful people, and that's it. Thank you.